Greetings, sentient beings. This broadcast is not intended for children. There may be strong language and adult themes. Although today we are talking about autistic masking. Although let's start with everybody introducing yourself. What do you want us to call you? What are your pronouns?
I killed Earl. You may call me Earl. I am a she, her. I'm the resident mutant. So, there you go.
Yeah, I never caught the story of where your name came from, but
I used to call my ex-husband Earl.
we'll catch that later. Okay. David?
Yeah, it's from the Dixie Chicks song by Earl.
David?
I was sadly Wanda, but you got her comeuppance. So it was me taking my power back.
You there.
Hope we get Mage back.
Oh, and Mage just popped out. Well,
Oh, okay.
that did not go as planned.
Oh, well, he'll come back. I'm David Page. I'm autistic
David,
ADHD.
you've muted your mic.
No, I can hear him.
Is it working now? It should be.
Yeah. No, I could hear you before.
No.
Oh, okay.
We were fine in StreamYards until we started this, but we can't hear you now.
Are you good now?
I can hear him. I think it's
maybe try plugging your mic in again. Oh, apparently.
Yeah, it's you, honey. It's not him.
Wait, what?
It's you, Purple. It's you. It's all you.
Okay, yep. I found it.
You're the problem, not me.
Well, I mean, at first I was hearing Earl, but I wasn't hearing you.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought you were Earl. I was glad that you're here.
It's always
okay. Okay. Yeah, people in the side chat are saying the audio is good here now, so we've got L Trucker and Skits Crasher and Mark Caesar. And I have found that with my live streams, it is very common that most of the audience doesn't show up until 10 or 15 minutes in, which is probably how long it takes YouTube to send out the notifications to let people know we're live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I usually piddle fart around for a few minutes until the waves of people got to come in.
Yeah, Mage had mentioned some technical difficulties before we started, so I guess he's having trouble with his internet connection today.
I just got to say that I'm proud as shit that I actually got all this stuff to work all by myself. I literally just hooked up these earbuds like right before I got on here, and I was terrified that I was going to come in. It was going to be this big cluster, and go me.
Very good. Very good.
I'm not technically proficient at all. I have techno fear. I'm always terrified. I'm like, if I touch it, I'm gonna break it.
Well, one of my friends who was a professional IT guy said that I have a negative technology aura. That I cause things to malfunction even though he could never find anything wrong.
Ditto. I can like, I'm one of those people that I can figure it out usually, just point me in the right direction. The internet is a great thing, I'm not afraid to go look for answers, but yeah, I'm very nervous about technical stuff. I just feel like I think I'm probably more proficient than I am giving myself credit for, but I'm terrified to get something up.
Okay, well, getting into the topic, what is masking? And the long and short of it is, masking is when autistic people try to behave as normal to blend in social situations and such. And
yes, agreed.
Yep.
Yes.
So, and people don't realize that for an autistic person, this takes an awful lot of energy because it's literally trying to pretend to be something we know we're not.
Mhm.
And generally, it's more of a skill that's learned over the years from watching other people or, even watching in TV and movies. My late fiance helped me a lot because, like, when we were watching TV, sometimes she would pause or rewind a bit to point something out to me that, were nonverbal cues that I was very bad at catching.
I I I had no idea that I was autistic when I was young, but I always um I mimicked what I was seeing. My friends would describe it like my brother and I would talk in movie quotes. So that
Hmm.
was how like I related to other people, and I still do that. Um, where I'll quote movies or something like that. Like, oh, that's the way you're supposed to behave. Um, so you sort of mimic or mime
Yeah,
that action so that because that looks normal on screen. Generally speaking, what's on TV isn't always healthy or normal. So you sometimes you pick
yeah.
up some bad habits. But um, yeah, I definitely did a lot of uh, people watching was always my favorite pastime. Even like going to a bar or something and just sitting there, I just liked watching how people interacted and would I didn't consciously do it, but then I would go and like recreate that in real life.
I think there might be a bad connection because you're kind of fading in and out.
I think I
A
probably
little
need to
bit.
bring this a little
We
closer.
could still, yeah, we could still understand everything you
Yeah.
said, but yeah, it was getting a little choppy there.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually didn't get diagnosed until I was in my 40s, but growing up, it's like I was growing up in the 70s. At that time, nobody knew what autism was.
Hmm.
So it was just that, I knew there was something very different about the way my brain worked, but, didn't have any vocabulary to explain it to people.
I
So
just thought I was broken.
yeah,
I didn't think I was broken. I thought, okay, this can sound terrible. I was ableist, but towards holistic people, I thought everybody was crazy because I would rationalize things and like a football game and guys getting in a fight over a football game. I'm like, it's a football game. And me trying to rationalize how two human beings could get that upset never ever, and it still doesn't to this day. I understand that it happens and I know it will happen. I can see when it will happen, but for my mind to process that a mind could think in that way does not
yeah.
make sense to me. So what I'm saying is I thought people were freaking nuts.
Mhm.
And then I
Yeah,
discovered
I
I
don't
was
understand why people
autistic.
get upset about stuff.
Yeah, and then I discovered I was autistic and that I was right. But no, actually, so what I'm talking about is like we were talking before about like the Spock syndrome or whatever. I noticed a definitive difference in the way that people thought. And I would literally say I think differently, but I didn't think anything was wrong. I just didn't understand what was going on or
Mhm.
why things were happening the way they do because like I would say things that were would be taken sexually or whatever towards females that I was like I was talking about ketchup. What are you talking about? I
Hmm.
was saying pass the ketchup, and you just said that I beat up puppies. Like
Yeah, I did a lot of what Earl was talking about before of, like, picking stuff up from movies and TV shows. Except I had the problem that I really had little interest in what were, like, the most popular shows, so I was using quotes from things no one else had seen.
I watched a lot of obscure movies when I was a kid.
Yeah, well,
My mom wasn't very protective of us watching stuff with like cuss words or you know
oh,
nothing super gratuitous, but like we could pretty much watch what we wanted. Although she did draw the line at South Park, which I thought was funny. Um, South Park came out when I was in the like second grade, I think.
yeah,
So It's been a long time. I'm older than I look. um, and that for that some reason that was a line. I think because she thought it was funny, and so like she knew if she thought it was funny, then there was definitely something wrong. Mom's got a twisted sense of humor.
Well, one of the quotes I keep using is you should never have touched the amber. And I'm waiting to find a single person who realizes what that's from.
Jurassic Park.
Oh no. It dates way before that. So that's a mystery thing. Somebody will have to look it up, and I don't know, there should be a prize for the first person who finds out what it's from.
That'll be my mission tonight. You realize you just challenge accepted.
Okay, we'll come back next week and you can tell everybody.
Yeah.
You challenge an autistic, you lose.
That depends on what you're challenging them to. And I'm sure some guy thinks he won because he just lied to me about having written 1,000 lines of code a day on Twitter, but who cares about Twitter?
I got rid of my Twitter ages, at least years ago. Yeah, Twitter and Instagram were evil.
Athena, you
Yeah,
always
Michael Bell says it's not the age, it's the mileage.
Athena, you always understand what I mean.
Rode
Yeah,
hard and put up wet.
I find in general I can communicate with cats much better than I can communicate with humans.
Well, Athena generally
Saying a lot.
I've been very good at rehabilitating abused cats.
Athena generally only wants a few things. Right now she needs her litter box cleaned, and I need to get to that. And to give you more kitty litter. Hey, Athena.
Not my thing.
Well, the problem I'm having now is having 2 cats and only 1 lap, so I am the most disputed territory here.
Oh, you are warm.
That's a cat ass. That is definitely a cat ass.
Yeah. Well, Ethan is always also having to learn that if you're going to lay in my lap, you're going to be a keyboard support.
Anywho.
Literally,
Athena,
most of the time I'm online, my keyboard is laying across one of the cat's backs.
So anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, it takes a lot of energy for most autistic people to try and fit into social situations, and different people approach it in different ways. My approach to it had pretty much always been to kind of, stay in a corner and blend into the background so nobody noticed I was there.
I was the extroverted introvert, but I needed liquid courage to do it. So it caused me to be drunk for many, many, many years so that I could have some kind of human interaction, but I needed that lubricant or it was paralyzing.
Yeah, basically, to do any group events, I usually needed a chaperone. Somebody who could kind of point things out. The other problem I have is I have a very bad case of the face blindness. That I don't recognize people and I can't connect the faces and names.
I
Which
forget people's names all the time, but I remember everybody's face.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a very hard time watching movies because of that. And if there's like more than like 5 characters, I'm pretty much out.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, "Hey honey, what's she'll have to pause it and she'll be like, "That was the guy that because I won't remember their faces or anything until I can get to see their mannerisms."
Mm-hmm.
Particularly if they pan out a lot and I can see how they walk and how they carry themselves, how they speak, even how they breathe. You can see all
Yeah.
those different things. That's how I tell. But like my son who passed, I don't really know what anybody looks like. I mean, I see little bits and pieces, but
Yeah.
when I see someone, then I can recognize them a lot of times, like my family and stuff. But like, what are the Tom Cruise and there's another fella. I cannot tell them apart.
Yeah, well, that's
Charlie Sheen, and
uh,
Tom Cruise. I cannot tell them apart. I have no idea.
most
And I understand they
neurotypical
don't
people.
look
Definitely
alike.
resonate. I resonate with what Michael Bell just put in the chat.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm
I
a
killed.
social, antisocial person.
Speaking of autistic things, I killed earlier. Can you turn your mic volume down, please?
Who's that?
Yeah.
Maybe up a little more,
It
but
was
for some reason it's coming across really loud.
was it fine for everybody else?
It's good.
after the choppy bit, you did come back a bit louder than you had been.
Okay. I don't know. This
Okay.
still getting
My
used to
psych
this.
doctor
We still
says
have
that
to
I'm
play
the
with it
most
later.
antisocial person she has ever seen. I remember faces and not names. Yeah.
Notice
Well,
that.
that's um a, a lot of neurotypical people will like instantly be offended that I don't recognize them immediately. And it's like it's not that I don't remember you, it's just that I don't have a visual image in my mind of what you looked like. Once if you can talk a bit and remind me of last time we got together or something, then it'll come together. But just looking at you, I'm not going to remember who you were.
I was just wondering about that the other day. I'm 53 years old, and I'm wondering, and I've lived in small towns or whatever, but I wonder how many friendships I've lost because I walked right by, looked somebody dead in the face, and walked right on by without saying hello.
Yeah.
Somebody that I should have known. I've had that. I've not known my daughter when I talked to her because she was in the wrong place. She was in the wrong city. She and her
Yeah,
boyfriend came up, said something to me, and I said something to them, and they walked off. And then as she walked off, I recognized her gait, and I was
Yep.
like,
exactly. That's exactly the problem I have. That if I see somebody someplace I'm not expecting them, like they're out of context, then I can't place them.
mm-hmm.
So,
I,
even like running into my cousin in the grocery store, I was just totally blank. I had no idea who this was.
Yeah.
This was
my
my
dad was
daughter, and I knew her well.
Well, at least I have the built-in excuse for most people who say it's like, "Hey, I remember you." It's like, I'm a substitute teacher. You didn't want me to remember you.
My dad was a dentist, and so lots of people would see him out, and he would go like this, and they would go, "Oh, doctor,"
Yeah, they don't recognize him without the mask.
Mhm.
Well, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't care to meet my dentist in person, but
Why?
it's not her fault. She's just a dentist.
This one I relate to a lot. Is that after I have an incident like that, it'll be like the next day that it'll occur to me who that was.
What's wrong with dentists? It's awfully rude.
It's not. Again, it's just I've had bad experience with dentists for things that aren't their fault. It's just
The dentist mined all my teeth to get rich off the tooth fairy.
Taking out teeth is probably the least expensive thing that dentists do.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's, then they sell them to the tooth fairy and they get their money that way.
It was pretty cheap for me too. Get them teeth out.
Oh, that hurts me.
And I'm not joking.
I know. My ex-father-in-law did the same thing. Freaked me out.
but I don't know.
But, it's something that neurotypical people just, will not understand is the idea of you actually having to put a conscious effort into a facial expression.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have to tell people all the time to not believe what my face is saying, but just believe what I'm actually saying, because I have a terminal case of resting bitch face, and
I had no idea.
I don't have control over what I do with my face half the time. So
you got to
there's a
understand.
lot of things that I don't mean it to say.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was a peace officer for 15 years, so I had that like correctional thing, but I had no idea I was autistic. But right before COVID, I was like, I have to start because I realized that I was intimidating people. So I made up a game of when I was walking through Walmart or the mall of trying to make people smile, trying to make eye contact and trying to make them smile. So I'm like going around the mall like this, I'm feeling creepy as shit, but it started working. And then we started wearing the mask and I got out of the habit again. And then I discovered that I was autistic. But isn't it kind of funny that I realized that I had to make that eye contact that I consciously had to stop and it was the smile game for me, which is ridiculous.
I
I've worked
personally,
in some. Oh, go ahead.
I loved the period when everybody was wearing the masks because, then nobody could read my facial expressions. They knew then I couldn't read theirs. So it kind of leveled the playing field for me.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize it's like when autistic people tend to communicate, they mean what they're saying generally.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
There's no hidden meaning. It's like if I'm telling you, I don't know.
The way I put it
Well,
is we say the exact words of what we mean. With holistic people, what is important is the idea of what is being said. The words are not important. As long as you understand I'm talking about rocket ships, we're good. But for me, I'm like, we're not getting on the rocket ship today. And they gloss over the today, or you know what I'm saying? It's the idea we're going on a rocket ship. So it's really a very different kind of style of communication.
Well, the thing is,
I'm very blunt.
autistic people don't have a problem communicating with autistic people.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes we
well,
do.
You're
I
right.
remember
I
the
have a lot of
event.
problems with it.
I remember the event in our relationship, and my late fiance knew I was autistic. When we first met, she picked up on it real quick because she had dated somebody who was autistic before. But just kind of the shock on her face when it all fully clicked that she said that your body language says you're lying, but you've no reason to lie about this.
Body language.
Okay,
Science
what did I
is
miss
complete
here?
crap.
Oh, we just finished talking about you.
We were talking a lot about
Come
the
back.
difficulty of recognizing people if we run into them out of context, and
And
you
our
know body
plans,
language and facial expressions, and the effort it takes to try and present an acceptable facial expression when we don't understand why.
and our plans to get you to meet the cast of the Ghostbusters remake.
Woohoo! Wait, no, the remake? No, fuck that. Besides, I'm pretty sure one of them at least hates me. So, alright.
Yeah, you do say some things you shouldn't on Twitter, but who doesn't?
Isn't that what Twitter's for?
Yes, it is.
Twitter's evil.
I
Michael's-
still have not forgiven the people who talked me into making an account on Twitter.
In all honesty, I don't care for Leslie Jones as a comedian either.
I'm going to argue, with you, Michael Bell. You said I never knew in real life autistic until 5 years ago in theater. I bet you have known more. I bet you've known so many autistics in your life you would have no idea. Like probably like most of your friends that you've been close to or whatever, like half of them are probably autistic. I'm just saying. I mean, you could be different, but normally with people like myself, it's like 70% of the people that I've been around that I was close to were all autistic, but it's taken me 3 years to figure that out.
I think the
Yeah.
last time I was in a room full of autistic people would have been, let's see, March 29th this year, the last time I attended one of my college classes in person.
Yeah, I
From what
found
I
it
know.
funny that after I got my diagnosis, within 6 months of that, 7 of the 9 people in my adult Lego group got diagnosed with it. So that's the reason the group was working, was we were all autistics all along and nobody knew it.
Well, masking, of course, is not just for autism. It applies for a lot of different things. Depression, and I'm sure being trans, you've masked
Oh yeah,
before that.
it's come in a lot in being trans as well.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, it's kind of, a lot of this stuff is hard to sort out, and you probably can't really sort it out between the Tourette's and the autism and the trans. There's bleed over of symptoms from all of these, and can't say which one's causing what.
Found this handy little image I came across here. It's basically common signs of autistic masking at a glance by Dr. Megan Ann Neff. Repeating phrases exactly as others have said them, and creating scripts to use in social situations, using
Yep.
behavioral learning from watching others interact, participating, practicing facial expressions and body language. I know I've done that before. Though this person also who says in their little bio that they were diagnosed autistic ADHD and are a psychologist interested in mental health, neurodiversity, and wellness. And they had a little part in this article from where I pulled this image from. It says in the section is autistic masking and BIPOC and trans people. In addition to gender-related social conditioning and safety play is a crucial role in development of autistic masking. For instance, many BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and trans individuals are also high maskers. Navigating a society that is rife with racism and transphobia poses significant risks, leading many to adopt strategies like code switching, altering the behavior and language, and to conform to the culture norm and of dominant and white spaces. For individuals already code switching, adding autistic masking becomes a logical step, although it adds as yet another layer of complexity and exhaustion into their experience. Autistic BIPOC individuals often find themselves juggling demands of code switching and autistic masking simultaneously. Similarly, trans people frequently learn to mask as a means of self-preservation and protection in a world that often judges, devalues, and misunderstands them. Masking becomes a protective mechanism. And many trans people will experience pressure to conceal their true autistic selves to navigate the challenges and biases as they encounter more safely. Understanding the intersectionality of autistic masking and with gender, race, and identity provides insight into the multifaceted experiences of autistic people who employ the strategies consciously or unconsciously. And, and it kind of gets into just goes on from there.
Yeah, as far as that illustration you brought up, we covered, a lot of that while you were out, as far
Yeah.
as
Okay.
the facial and the body language and the using behaviors, especially learned from TV and movies. The one thing we haven't touched on yet is about creating scripts for social situations.
Yeah. All right.
Autistic people often spend a lot of time rehearsing conversations ahead of time when they're anticipating going somewhere.
And don't you hate when the whole thing doesn't go as you expected and you're off script?
Yes. I learned it never goes as expected, so
Yeah.
Well, and I think I do what most autistic people would do, that when it goes off script, you start talking about one of your special interests for an hour when nobody wants to hear it. So I would just go on about Lego or something like that.
I think this is really bad, but I learned to redirect this conversation to re-steer it to where I wanted it to go again, like so that way we could get back on track to my conversation. Right.
Hope I didn't derail anything with that.
But like what you guys were saying, when you scripted, when you kind of have an idea of what you're going to say that evening, and it goes off script, you just like you want to go hide or like figure a way to get back to what you thought you were supposed to say that was so wonderful. But nowadays, I don't give a. I just stop.
Yeah, well, and it's hard for me to do a social situation if I don't kind of know in advance of like what kind of theme or something it's going to have. So like I could do the gaming conventions because of course everybody's going to be talking about the games. So I could have scripts prepared for each game I was going to participate in. But just going to a public place to meet people, like okay, we're just all going to, meet up and have pizza. Then it's like, okay, what am I going to talk about? I can only do the personal anecdotes about pizza for about 15 minutes and people will be sick of it.
I find it's actually difficult to gauge when you've gone too far or whether or not you're annoying people.
I usually don't know when I've gone too far until the next day.
My solution was to stop caring.
Yeah, my solution was basically to stop going to group events. And that, for me, that had to include family gatherings because even these spontaneous family gatherings involved at least a dozen people, which is way over my limit.
Because if people can't... Sorry.
Yeah, for me, if there's more than 6 people in the room, I know I'm lost. Then I'm just going to shut down and sit in the corner.
Because if people can't take me for who I am, screw them.
Mm-hmm.
Not literally, of course.
I have sometimes gone to the strategy of I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try to annoy people straight off and see which ones will continue talking to me.
Then you found your people.
Oftentimes, when you do have the prepared script, you wind up overwhelming people.
See, that's another thing. We probably don't care that we're messing it up. You probably have our own ideas about what.
Yeah, I get what Commander is saying, though, that, if you start out on your script, sometimes you forgot to leave places in your script to pause and let someone else talk.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there's the assuming of knowledge where there is none, and then you make the assumption that there's no knowledge to compensate for that the next time you do it, you wind up boring people. It's not a Harvard dissertation, they would tell me, give me the Reader's Digest.
Well,
Hey.
autistics tend to do
Yeah.
speak in monologues, and then whereas the allistics tend to go right back and forth real quick, but we tend to like have a monologue stop and then the next person blah blah blah.
Commander, I have literally gotten that I've had a couple of people just stop me mid-sentence and say, give me the Reader's Digest version.
And no one gets that reference anymore because who reads Reader's Digest under the age of 60?
I didn't read it. I just had someone say, give me that, rather than give me the ancient history of how Nietzsche mind-fucked the world.
I think today's version is give me the TLDR.
Well, this is why I keep saying that I can't deal with anybody who identifies as normal. So fortunately, I've managed to find enough people on the spectrum and, enough people with related experiences to form communities online.
Mm-hmm.
Who identifies as normal?
I do,
Weirdos.
actually. Because I figure I'm a normal autistic, which is like way out there, but nonetheless, I'm a normal autistic.
But seriously, who identifies as normal? We all have some idea of how we're different than others.
Mm-hmm.
Not totally, and maybe it's kind of a self indoctrination thing, perhaps that there are some people, who are so concerned with fitting into society all the time that after a number of years they don't even realize how much effort they're putting to fit into a group.
Or how much they've actually changed to do it. If you take people's beliefs from like 10 years ago, um, well, I used to enjoy taking things that politicians said 10 years ago and making them argue with their today's self. People change. One of my things is that causes me a great deal of mental distress is that I have a really good memory and people around me are constantly trying to mind fuck me. And I just want the values of my grandparents for the most part and what I knew growing up and just I'm sorry. I rambled on and I didn't think. But one of the things that caused me not to get sucked into some things was just not being distracted by idiocy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of stupidity in the world, and it's hard not to get sidetracked by it sometimes.
I like everything being regular and predictable.
Very common for people who are autistic.
Yeah, yeah, that I want to have a predictable flow for whatever time I'm spending outside of my home. Excuse me. And that can easily get thrown off by people doing rather mundane things. Just again running into somebody I didn't expect to see and not being able to place it, or even just a stranger starting a conversation with me. So then I'm trying desperately to think of who this person is because they're probably somebody that I've known for a while and not remembering them.
Since I've discovered I'm autistic, I now when I meet people, I just tell them I probably won't remember you if I ever see you in town or whatever else. I just let them know right off the bat.
There was also a huge overlap between autism and ADHD.
Hmm. And I am ADHD also.
I just got my results back and they said that I'm not, but I am almost completely lacking in executive function.
Hmm. I don't know if they put almost on my lack of, of executive function.
Well, I say almost because, I managed to put this together online and I managed to get a group of people who could relate to the topic. So I
Hmm.
must have some level of it, but on a
Not
day to
much.
day basis, I can't keep my apartment clean.
Right. Right. I understand. Absolutely.
I just
And
don't
that's
like.
like with me. That's all I can do is to do a few streams a day, and that's about it.
Most of what I've been doing lately is fighting with the GNU C compiler. Oh, sorry, I slipped into special interest. I'm just exhausted lately.
It's okay.
That's all right. One of the things that really got me a start with, getting into an online community was realizing that things that happen here, like where's Earl? That people just disappear from conversations without any explanation. So in an online stream, I've always got an exit strategy. All I have to do is click one button and I'm out of the conversation, and nobody has to know why. They'll just assume that my internet connection went down.
Yeah, like what I had just when this thing started.
Yeah.
Well, you can have people call or whatever else. There's all kinds of different
And
things
I
that can
think
happen.
that's another thing that goes in, with autistics and social situations is we're usually going to get kind of panicky if we don't have an exit strategy. If we don't have a way that we know we can get out of it if things start going really sour.
And if it's an autistic person that just gets up and walks out, I don't care. I mean, I care about the person, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to take it personal. I know that for whatever reason they're overstimulated. It might be me, it might not, but there's no reason to worry about it because eventually they're going to come and let me know. So, whatever.
Well, and again, that works dealing with other autistics.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with neurotypical people,
It's a whole
this is
different.
generally seen as being like the height of rudeness to just walk out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why that's why I say that the golden rule falls apart with introverts and autistics, because the do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That most of the time, I would rather people just not even notice I was there. But if I do that to other people, they think I'm being incredibly rude.
Well, I guess this is a good point to get into some of the downsides of masking, such as I've got this up on Henry Ford Health. They have delayed diagnosis as one possibility, since the person's masking it might make it harder to tell that they are autistic. Burnout from just having to pull that energy into pretending something you're not. And interestingly enough, they had this last one was mental health challenges, which they linked to a study showing that people who tend to have depression and other issues. And looking at the study itself, of under results in autistic acceptance, and it says when asked as whether they felt socially society in general will accepted them as an autistic person. 7% of participants said yes, as 43% said no, and 48% said it sometimes. Two preferred not to say. Participants were also asked to rate the statements, and so over the past week, I felt accepted by in society as an autistic person, and person with autism, yada yada. 24.3% and strongly agreed. Or three or agreed. 34% neither agreed nor disagreed, and 41.4% agreed or strongly disagreed with the statement. But that was in, I believe, 111 adults were interviewed for this. So, from gathering of that, most most people feel that society or family in general will tend to not being that accepting.
Right.
Yeah, and that is something that I wind up running into a lot, is that, even though mine came out 15 years ago, most of my family has shown very little comprehension, very little interest in learning anything about it. So when I'm around family, I'm just expected to act normal, which they should have learned by the time I was 6 or 7 that that's something I can't do.
Yeah, masking was actually a big thing I did for quite a long time. I was actually, for some reason, I actually felt ashamed for being autistic for a while, for quite some time. I wouldn't even mention it. I'd mention all the other issues I had, but would not mention that one for some reason. I'm now looking back at it, I don't even know why.
There is a lot of social stigma with it. That, most people have like a single idea of autism, which is probably from the movie Rain Man. So it's like they automatically hang a bunch of stuff on you,
Mm-hmm.
not realizing, how individual it can be to each person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you say you're autistic, everybody assumes that you're also some kind of a savant in some area.
Yeah. In the movie, yeah, the movies do. We mentioned before, movies tend to not do too good of a job of representing what autism is like. Though, since I just got this,
Movies.
yeah, since
I'm
I just got
sorry.
this, that's okay. Since I just got to see the Ghostbusters movie, I'd like to say the character of Phoebe is probably one of the best representations I've seen of what autism looks like. With the except, oh, she still does have the whole super genius thing going in a trope, but it's pretty dead on otherwise.
Okay, now to me, that's a recommendation to go see the movie. No, just, I'd like to see how they handled that character now.
You'd have to start with Afterlife and go into it.
Okay, so now I got 2 movies I have to watch. That's okay. By the time I finish the first one, the new one would probably be on a streaming service.
So, Michael, you
Commander,
were
you had something you were trying to say there?
Oh, I was just going to say that movies tend to suck representing much of anything in any shade of reality if it's complex.
Yeah. Well, they definitely have problems with disabilities because they rarely actually have anyone who has the disability involved in the project. So they should have somebody who has whatever condition they're talking about to be able to kind of look at things and say, that's not really how that happens in the real world.
And I didn't even catch that there was anything different about Phoebe. I
they're
just thought that she was upset that she couldn't do the things that she wanted to do because of that asshole who keeps trying to shut down the Ghostbusters.
yeah, they never explicitly state that she is, but there's some lines in the Afterlife movie that kind of touch on it.
huh.
That does get annoying too when they won't state a character as a certain way. Like Sheldon probably is autistic, but they keep wanting to say it's like, oh no, we didn't write him that way. It's like
I was talking to somebody about Bones, the character Brennan there. That character was written as an autistic character, but they would not say it because in the 90s they were afraid of repercussions or whatever. But the thing is what struck me is this: if they ran that same exact show now, they'd screw it up because then she would be an autistic character and they would change the character to be autistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
You
big
see what I'm
problem.
saying? Even though it was, they could have left the character exactly like it was and just said, yeah, autistic in one line and left it alone. But like I said, nowadays they would make her autistic, and that was what bugs me.
Well,
Yeah,
as far as the Big Bang Theory, I think maybe they didn't even realize it, but I think all 4 of the male characters and Amy were probably all autistic, just in different dimensions of it.
yeah.
I always thought that.
Yeah, the closer they get to being overtly stating that Phoebe was autistic is where she says is that she processes emotions differently.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, like in the Big Bang Theory, actually, the character I best related to was, Stuart, the comic shop guy.
Hmm.
That he was always trying so hard to be included in the social stuff, but had no clue at all how to do it.
I mostly related to Sheldon because people around me had no idea what I was trying to get done or doing, and they thought I was dumb. But my mind was going about it such a different way than they would that they didn't understand I was going to be able to do the project. If that makes any sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I always tell people, don't tell me how to do it. Tell
What needs to be
me
done?
tell me the end
Yeah.
result you want and leave me alone.
Exactly. What's the end result? You need this block moved here or to there. If
Yeah.
that's all you just tell me that. Don't tell me to go over there, go get the thing and then bring it
Yeah.
over here and put
But
it down. No, just tell me to move the dang rock. I need it over there.
it'll be much
Yeah.
faster for me to figure out the whole project on my own than to try
Mhm.
and interpret your instructions and somehow translate that into physical actions.
Mhm. Yeah, Michael, you earlier you said something when you were in the military. I learned one thing in the military. There's only one bad thing about having an autistic in the military, and that is they're gonna obey orders. And I've got some stories about that.
Yeah,
Because
that's
these
actually
neurotypical people were in the military. Well, I was in the military. You're supposed to obey the rules, obey orders. So I would do literally exactly what they said. And I'll put it this way, it pissed off admirals.
Really? Huh.
Oh yeah, I got in a lot of trouble. I screwed up entire operations, like entire big operations. Yeah, it was bad.
well, that's why I had kept that comment up, but Mage was going on to another point that um it seems I've never been in the military, but I can understand why the military would be good for a lot of autistics
Mm-hmm.
because you've got a very defined structure and they give very specific instructions, very specific orders on what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the part that autistics generally have trouble with is when people give kind of general instructions and figure that you're supposed to fill in the gaps.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I think a lot of the autistic, particularly we know we have veterans that have a hard time getting jobs when they get out. I think the ones in particular, probably a lot of autistic veterans have a particularly hard time because they don't have that structure. You know where you're supposed to go to bed, when you're supposed to go to bed, where you're supposed to go get up, and you know exactly what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it. Like you're saying, it's not like when you work at a some industry where the schedules might change or whatever else. But even then, if you're in the military and you have an operation, then you know you're on 24 hours a day, so it doesn't matter. You know?
Yeah, one of the things I point to, I'm certain my father was autistic. Again, my family won't even discuss the topic. But one of the things I point out is that, my dad was good every day he worked. That he had his routine, he had his schedule, getting up,
Mm-hmm.
going to work, all that stuff. On weekends, he generally looked like he was lost. If he had a day off of work, he didn't know what to do with himself.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I had to go away for a minute to make some screeching noises and scare the cats.
Okay.
Why do the cats need scared?
They don't, it's just my Tourette's is really on high gear today.
The kitties love you.
Michael, I feel the same way. I had the same exact experience. That I was basically even at work and stuff. Sometimes I was treated as if I was dumb because I did think differently and I had different ways and different solutions and so forth of doing things. And that got very, very difficult.
I got a lot of that in work situations too, just because I would have trouble following the instructions Or else I would take every word of the instructions literally.
Mm-hmm.
And neither way did that work.
My chief one day made the mistake of saying, pretend this is real. And I did on this operation. And when I did, I made calls and did things that got all kinds of people going.
geez.
Hey, I did what I was told. That's when the admirals got mad. I screwed up their operation. They were supposed to have a sneaky operation, and I ratted out the aggressors because that's what I was told to do, to pretend it was real. I saw the aggressors, so I reported them. And it ruined the entire operation. No lurking listening. So, I was wondering if anybody had any questions.
Yep, we're always open to questions from people in the side chat. Anytime I'm streaming, I assume Terry is lurking because it seems that she's usually there for the entire chat and doesn't say anything until people start saying goodbyes.
Well,
Master lurker.
Well, actually, we've been going for almost an hour here, so actually, I think we'll wind this up here.
Okay.
So let's go around. Anybody has anything to plug? Commander?
The DSA 8 o'clock.
Is that
Going
8
to
o'clock
be
Eastern?
8 o'clock Eastern, and probably at the beginning of probably next DSA, my brother will be running it because I'm going to be having a new temporary job. Basically, I'm going to be making extra money for like 1 month before I move to Virginia. But we're going to try to keep it going and deal with certain issues behind the scenes and all that.
Okay, and Jason's got the link for you there. Thank you, Jason. Porpoise, you have anything coming up?
After finals are done, I plan on starting a new show on the new channel called Faulty Logic Fridays.
That sounds fun.
Maybe. I know people are expecting me to be snarky, and I honestly don't know how I got that reputation.
I know you were trying for sinister, and maybe it just doesn't come across right. I think that you need a proper maniacal villain laugh.
You've obviously never heard me laugh. I find something hilarious, but if you want to check out my new channel, check out the Mad Computer Scientist. I need to get back to it. I can. The last one was probably something on math errors in the Bible and the Quran, which was just not that interesting because most of the math errors just aren't really that big a deal. And the worst one in the Bible is they have something where pi equals 3, and the worst one in the Quran is a fraction error.
Yeah, I watched your video, and yeah, the pi thing just sounds like they were rounding badly for something that was imprecise.
But with that
Or
being said,
perhaps at the day, that's all you really needed.
be excellent to each other, and so long, and thanks for all the fish.
Well, I think that if they tried to say pi equals 3, that every wheelwright and barrel maker would tell them they were wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so David, you're nearly at the end of your 100 hours of responding to Autism Speaks.
Yes, I think what I'm going to end up doing now, I'm on hour 99. I'm gonna probably finish up my last hour tonight at some point in time, and then I think Monday through Friday is probably 4 to 6 Mountain Standard Time. Um, I'll be live on TikTok and YouTube. I might start going to Instagram here pretty quick. And I'm just going to talk about just different topics and so forth. I've done almost, like I said, 100 hours just talking about Autism Speaks, and the things that I've dug up are amazing. But I've also dug up some other very interesting um, things that concerning autism. So I guess I'm kind of turning into somewhat of an investigative journalist ish talk type person. I don't know.
That sounds good. Mage?
Well, I still have to get that video, that garden tour out on my channel, Gardens Happen, and I'll probably be on Beck's channel on What the Beck tomorrow. And well, I finally got a little chance to talk to Amanda, so I might be able to get uh, that video on the whole climate change in urban gardens going.
Cool.
So I wanted to get a climatologist's view on that.
Okay, well, I was going to sign off here, but we had one last question from the side chat here about, do you maintain long-term relationships easily? And my personal experience has been that either I completely shut people off the first time we meet, or we're going to be friends for decades. There seems to be nothing in between.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
I will be your friend as long as you want me to be your friend, and
I'm kind of time blind, so if I part with a friend, it could be 20 years later and we're still friends just like we were, when we parted. But as far as keeping long-term friends, I've known Purple for I think almost a decade now, pretty close to it, and Mage
Well,
for 4 or 6 years.
yeah, I've been on YouTube since 2017, and I don't
Mhm.
think it was too long after that we met.
Mhm.
I think it's actually only been about 2 or 3 years you've known me.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, but I do have people that I have like known since the 90s. That we may only like trade an email once a year, but
Mhm.
we're still kind of connected with each other. And that's another thing about autistic friendships is that for me at least, it's generally the kind of if you don't hear about a disaster, everything's running fine.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's again that I've tried making friends with normal people, and it's like they expect you to talk to them every single month.
Like no.
Yeah, it's like, why would I call you if there isn't any news to share, if just everything ran as expected?
Mhm.
So
I
yeah,
wind up
that's a
just dropping people little things now and then just because I know people need that reminder.
okay. Yeah, the side chat generally gets this.
TV Tube. I have to say, I'm glad it's not only me. Is that selfish? Oh heck no, heck no. That's why you have these communities that come together because we can lean on each other and understand each other and know that we're all freaks, but we're all
Yeah.
normal freaks. It's all normal.
Well, okay, and this is a special case because yeah, Soft Girl is used to me, coming up and checking on her every evening. So when it actually went more than 24 hours that she didn't hear from me, she called the police to do a wellness check on me
Oh
because
geez.
nobody had seen me leave my apartment for a day.
Oh my word. How funny.
Like I said, it's a special case with her because, she expects me to come up there every evening and check on her and feed her cat. Her cat, Petunia, sees me as being a bringer of food and apparently feels that she is incapable of feeding her, so she has to wait for me every day. Hi. And I have both of my kitties here right next to the chair. Okay, well, with that, thank you all for coming. We appreciate all of you. Um, some special thanks to our supporters, Stitch Crasher, TV Atheist, Robert X, Lavender Lady, Greg Hartwick, Southern Sail, and Von Rick. These are the people who send me a bit each month to keep the channel running, and I very much appreciate the help paying the internet bill. So we will be back here next week, same time with another autism stream. Haven't decided on exactly what subtopic yet.
I got a couple of ideas.
Okay. Yeah, we can discuss that tonight and see what you've come up with. And then, of course, we will be here every Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central, just for our, quote, holiday streams that generally will go off topic in 5 minutes, and it'll just be people hanging out talking about whatever's on their mind.
Unless it's about potatoes.
Yep. Yeah, for some reason, potatoes are big. I am going to blame that on Stool because, I'm still way outclassed. That Stool ran a 9-hour stream that was nothing but a still picture of a potato. No audio at all. Even he doesn't remember this. But it's like I kept popping in about once an hour to see if somebody was talking.
Oh my word. How funny.
Okay. So, goodbye, all. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you on Wednesday. And there's the button